I'm standing with
Ahmed
from the Swedish section of the CWI. In Israel we have a crisis for workers, middle classes. And people say we want an alternative, and some of them say the alternative is the Swedish model. We want to be like Sweden. So what's the current situation in Sweden today?
The public sector will have less and less schools and hospitals, and more and more private schools, private hospitals and so on. Especially in the capital city, Stockholm, but we're seeing more of that in Gothenburg as well. So it starts by cutbacks, and then when there are houses that are empty because they close schools and so on, then they sell them to private companies who then make the private school and so on.
For instance, in Stockholm they have been fighting in different kinds of suburbs to get back their health care, to get back to fight for their libraries, to fight for the schools. Also in Gothenburg, the same thing. In Malmö there have been huge demonstrations against the violence in the suburbs and so on. So there are been protests against the privatizations and against the cutbacks and the austerities.
Okay.
In our city in Gothenburg, there is it's very bad. The segregation is very bad. It's getting worse and worse. A lot of children are living in poverty. For instance, where I live in Gothenburg, in the suburb, very few are able to go on vacation because they have to work all summer, whereas they have can't pay for their apartment or food. So that is the reality in many suburbs in Sweden.
Mostly there are families with the children and the working class people, the poorest working class people that are attacked today, especially immigrants and women. If you look at the immigrant youth, for instance, they have an unemployment rate of 40%, and the general unemployment rate is about 8%. So there are a lot of big differences. And the Swedish Prime Minister he made a stupid comment a couple of weeks ago when he said that, yeah, well, if you look at the ethnical Swede that is in his middle age, then you have a very low unemployment. You know, the suburbs are attacked constantly from politicians with austerity measures, with housing problems. People are living in houses full infected with mold. People who live like 8 families in one room, 8 persons in a family in one room, and a lot of them comes from war zones and from dictatorships, and they didn't get any health care in Sweden, so they're living with a social, psychological problems that's affecting the youth even more, and it's shown very clear in the suburbs. Women, for instance, I mean, if you just look at the sexual rapes, there are 55 women every day in Sweden that are getting raped, most at home. If you look at the women's salaries, it's about 1,000 kroners. It's like $100.
And also the union, they are to the right, but we still think that you should stay in the big union.
I mean, if you look at the Swedish trade unions, it's very clear that the ones in leadership of the trade unions, they are bureaucrats with high salaries. They sit in different posts that they get sometimes up to 2 million Swedish kroners a year.
2 million?
Yeah, so they get a lot of money from their bureaucratic work. But at the same time, the ones who are suffering are the working class people, their own members, but they don't have an interest to fight for them. They have an interest to keep their salaries, to keep their posts, and that's why they cooperate with the management, to work with the employers, and countering the working class people from going out to demonstrations or strikes. Sometimes they do make strikes, but it's more like they're forced to do it, not from beneath, not that they are willing to do it. Before the financial crisis, actually, the Social Democrats in Sweden was the ones who had the world record in austerity measures. They did the worst. The worst ones. Okay. They even bragged about it.
Well, they're kind of a joke. Really? Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Because they have voted for the cutbacks. They wanted to close 2 schools. They are in majority in the suburb, for instance, that I live in, and and they voted for the closing down of the schools. They said we should close these schools because we don't have enough money. That's the idea of a struggle, worker struggle.
They're sitting as a majority in the local councils in different parts of the country. They're doing the worst cutbacks. The right-wing parties are doing the privatizations, and they're doing the cutbacks, closing down schools and so on.
Okay, what is the CWI section in Sweden does in these days?
Well, we have a lot of campaigns when there was different cutbacks at schools and hospitals and things, and we're also work for the rights for asylum for refugees. We encourage comrades to participate in union work and to take a leading role and talking to a lot of people and talking about our politics and where we want to go, because we believe in pushing the union to the left from the member base, even if the leaders are much to the right now.
People say until the 80s, until I don't know 1985, the situation in Sweden was much better. So can you go back to the situation that was in the 1980s?
Within the globalization process, cheap labor is bought overseas. A lot of workers are losing jobs because the factories are moved abroad. So to gain back that welfare system, it needs to be an international struggle.
That depends on the political knowledge and the political consciousness amongst the young working class people. People have to remember that the rights that the working class people had in the 80s came out of political struggle, from strikes, from demonstrations, from occupations. They took the control of their own lives with their own hands, and that's what's needed today. And we're seeing a little bit of it today, but we need much more to get back our rights in Sweden.
So is it okay if we just go there, or just to go back to the 1990s and then everything will be okay?
That's very interesting that you say that, because if you look at those who've been struggling most for the working class people's rights, it's us, the socialists. We've been with socialist programs explaining why we need these rights and what else we need to do, and that is to have a socialist society all over the globe. We need to fight for our schools. We have to fight for our neighborhoods. But we are always going to have to fight for it if we not get the capitalist system off our backs and get a socialist society for all of us. The system is the one that is attacking us constantly. I mean, as soon in Sweden, it's a known joke that when it's a good economy, they say we have to be responsible and save when it gets bad, and when it gets bad in the economy, they say we have to be responsible and save on the schools and save on the healthcare and so on. So always austerities and cutbacks.
We should fight for a socialist world internationally, help each other out, every country in the world.